and as a private military contractor. Now, what that means, you guys can draw your own conclusions. It's not something I'm necessarily proud of. It's not something I brag about. I actually know something about advanced interrogation techniques. I used to do snatch and grabs and interrogate people out in the field as a contractor years ago. Yes, I have a classified background ability status according to the US government of 100% disabled. I'm not supposed to be walking without a cane. I'm not supposed to be standing without a cane. I'm not supposed to be training as heavy as I do, and you guys see what I do. I am medically forbidden from doing some of the things that I do.
Jason Blaha is probably the strangest name to ever come out of YouTube fitness, and this is far from an exaggeration. This is a man who has, at different points in his life, claimed to be a secret agent, a mercenary trained at Langley, a martial arts master, a male model, a millionaire's son, a street racer, and even in his own humble words, a werewolf with reptilian blood. But it doesn't stop there. He's bragged about eating 13 pizzas in one sitting, running a steroid lab, and scoring near-perfect SATs, while somehow also being deemed to have the intelligence of a 12-year-old by a judge during one of his arrests, and these aren't even the wildest parts of his story. He once said he sniped a terrorist off the back of a donkey, that he interrogated cartel members in the jungle, and that he was nicknamed Hemingway while running secret missions abroad. He's threatened other YouTubers, raised money for lawsuits and cars only to vanish with the cash, and at one point was even caught staging a fake witness video with a friend wearing sunglasses and a swirly face filter to prove his mercenary past.
Top 22, I was on Popular Military, and a Stolen Valor article kind of drew my attention to this guy named Jason Blaha. After watching one of his YouTube videos where he's holding an AR-10 with a big shit-eating grin on his face, I realized exactly what it was, because he was always so fond of the 308. That's our boy Hemingway. I hadn't seen that guy in 16 years or so.
But believe it or not, we're only still scratching the surface. Jason has been accused of pets, stockpiling weapons to intimidate critics, and neglecting a dog that later died under suspicious circumstances. He's been thrown out of apartments, gyms, and even a right-wing TV show after trolls exposed his past. At one point, he and his girlfriend roamed the streets of Texas at night, armed with rifles and bulletproof vests, hunting for internet trolls who never showed up. And then there are the countless failed relationships, from his nurse ex-wife who accused him of animal abuse, to his stripper girlfriend known as Moon Cookie, to a 50-year-old Chicago woman who asked him to gargle vinegar because of his bad breath.
I'm not going to bring her up too much because she's boring compared to Jason. But just in case you're wondering, Moon Cookie is Jason's ex-con.
Through it all, Jason never stopped uploading. Thousands of videos, 5 a day at times, rambling about fitness, loading ammo on camera, or whispering into a microphone while playing World of Warcraft. He has become both a compulsive liar and a permanent punchline, the subject of one of the longest-running trolling campaigns in YouTube history. You see, Jason Blaha's story is not just about lies. It's about how those lies attracted an army of trolls who made it their life's mission to test him. And one of the strangest, most dangerous examples of this came in 2016, when trolls turned his quiet Texas apartment into the set of a nightmare. On fitmisc.net, one particular troll using the handle Chuck Finn decided to escalate things in a way that was equal parts cruel and dangerous. Finn began posting Craigslist sex ads, complete with Jason's home address, advertising hookups and fetishes. This resulted in strangers showing up at Jason's apartment door, and these strangers were made up mostly of men expecting sex. For someone already paranoid and heavily armed, this was not good at all. It was a nightmare scenario. Jason assumed the trolls were sending people to attack or humiliate him. Instead of calling the police or ignoring them, he did the one thing guaranteed to make it worse. He armed himself with a rifle and filmed everything. On Instagram, Jason uploaded clips of himself patrolling his apartment complex with what appeared to be an assault rifle, ready for a confrontation. In 2 now infamous videos, he actually aimed his weapon directly at men who had come to the door.
I didn't even come out with a rifle. Look, I don't have a rifle. All I have is a pistol. Where's this? What's he scared of? He's got a pistol. He's got a pistol. He showed it. That's all I got. I got a pistol, and I didn't put my armor back on. I didn't put a rifle on.
In one of these confrontations, Jason ordered a man to put his driver's license on the floor before leaving. Jason then picked it up, effectively committing what, in legal terms, amounted to armed robbery. He had taken property from someone while brandishing a firearm. Legally, Jason should have been in deep trouble, but the man who had been forced to surrender his ID never pressed charges, likely out of shame. After all, he had answered a Craigslist sex ad, or simply out of fear of being further exposed. That technicality saved Jason from what could have been prison time. But what followed wasn't as kind. Jason's landlord quickly moved to evict him from his apartment, citing the danger of armed confrontations in a residential complex. At the same time, his gym membership was revoked after trolls flooded the facility with calls, reviews, and flyers warning them about the armed YouTube fitness guy.
I don't have a rifle, all I have is a pistol. Where's this? What's he
Here,
scared
turn
of?
this way so we can
He's
see
got
your
a
face.
pistol. He's got a pistol. He showed it. That's all I got. I got a pistol, and I didn't put my armor back on. I didn't put.
In the space of weeks, Jason went from filming rambling fitness rants in his apartment to being homeless, gymless, and more infamous than ever. While the circumstances encouraged this particular craziness, it was one of the clearest proof yet that Jason Blaha's paranoia, his trolls, and his guns were a combustible mix. He wasn't just a liar or a clown online anymore. To many, he was now dangerous, and it pushed the Jason Blaha story from simple internet mockery into something far darker, a case study in how trolling and delusion can spiral into real-world consequences. And this was only the beginning. Jason Blaha's life didn't start with mercenary tales or armed standoffs. Long before the trolls, before the lawsuits, before the call-out videos, he was just another kid with an internet connection and a story to sell. Born Jason Dwayne Blaha, he grew up weaving grandiose claims about his background, stories of secret government ties, high intelligence, and a future destined for greatness. By his own telling, he was scouted straight out of high school for certain types of work because of his marksmanship skills, claiming he could shoot successfully at 1,000 yards as a teenager. In later years, he would dramatically retell this as the beginning of a shadowy career under the Clinton administration, insisting he was recruited for covert missions, interrogations, and black ops. He even went so far as to say, "Yes, I've armed men in my life."
I became a man at the start of the Clinton presidency. I was scouted out for certain types of work before I even finished high school. Again, due to my family, my upbringing, connections certain members of my families might have had, along with my shooting skills. Again, I was shooting very successfully at 1,000 yards as a teenager, well before I was an adult. We'll call it a hunter. I was a hunter of exotic game, if that will make you guys feel better. And a pretty good chunk of the game that I hunted was a very dangerous type of game that did some sort of masonry or bricklaying.
But the reality was much less cinematic. The truth is, in his early 20s, court records paint a very different picture. Jason was born in 1976 in Houston, Texas, into what by most accounts was a relatively well-off family. His early years didn't actually feature the mercenary exploits he would later claim, but instead a brush with the law that revealed something very different about his character. As a young man, he was arrested for illegal handgun possession, spending a short time in jail, paying a $400 fine, and serving 80 hours of community service. Jason's version of the story was far more dramatic. However, the judge in his case described him as meek and on the verge of tears, even noting his intelligence as around that of a 12-year-old. This version of Jason hardly resembled the hardened killer he would later claim to be. By the early 2000s, Jason had thrown himself into lifting. He cycled steroids in an attempt to chase a peak physique, and for a short while he carried the bulk of someone who could pass in gym circles. A surgery on his left arm, which some still speculate is the result of heavy synthol use, left him with a disproportionate appearance, but this never stopped him from posturing as a world-class lifter. He bragged about being a ladies' man, a top competitor, and a figure in the underground bodybuilding world. His early life on the internet followed the same pattern. Jason would emerge on forums like Elite Fitness and Bodybuilding.com, claiming to be a steroid chemist with his own lab, a champion lifter, and an authority on training. When challenged, he often doubled down, fabricating personas and even making fake accounts, sometimes posing as women to support his own arguments. But what really made him infamous were the really bizarre and sometimes disturbing things he posted. Buried among the lifting talk were confessions and fantasies that shocked other users, like stories about bestiality with cats, kidnapping ducks, even attraction to underage girls.
Your body's going to respond to the pheromones of someone if you're a straight male, for example, and you're exposed to the pheromones of a girl who is not of the legal age, who is ovulating or whatever, she's going to produce pheromones that might cause sexual attraction.
The credibility of these posts has always been in question, but the fact they existed and matched his style of writing was enough to fuel a reputation that would follow him for years. To nobody's surprise, Jason's behavior repeatedly got him banned. He was notorious for sending unsolicited, indecent images to female users, and moderators quickly got tired of the drama. At the same time, other writings emerged under his name, or at least under accounts tied back to him, that pushed things even further. In the early 2000s, documents surfaced showing disturbing KKK-related writings and sexualized, mother-focused fantasies, written in a style eerily similar to Jason's. Whether he authored every word remains disputed, but the spelling, phrasing, and tone matched his online identity enough for trolls to pin it on him permanently. He was mocked, called out, and eventually run off the site. Even outside bodybuilding, Jason left wreckage. In the game RuneScape, he was allegedly kicked out of a guild for theft, another small echo of the same pattern: big claims, small scandals, and expulsions. But Jason never disappeared for long. He simply moved to another corner of the internet, this time finding a home on conspiracy theory forums like David Icke. After bouncing around bodybuilding sites where he was laughed off for exaggerations and lies, Jason discovered the David Icke forums, an online home for reptilian shapeshifters, Illuminati whistleblowers, and secret government experiments. For someone like Blaha, it was the perfect stage. Under the handle Dark Eternal, Jason posted thousands of times, each entry building a more bizarre mythology about himself. He claimed he had been a victim of government mind control programming, so severe that it left him with a split personality. At other times, he insisted he was related to royalty in both England and Czechoslovakia, only to be banished from his family because of their ties to black magic. He even said he had sued his own relatives for ritual abuse. The delusions only grew more extreme. Jason described having astronaut relatives, a reptilian hybrid bloodline, and, in what became one of the most infamous parts of his lore, that he might actually be a werewolf. The wildest part? On this forum, Jason wasn't just another crank in the comments section, he was elevated to the role of moderator, briefly given power to oversee discussions and enforce rules. But his constant contradictions and escalating stories caught up with him. Even among hardcore conspiracy theorists, Jason stood out as too much. Eventually, even the conspiracy forums turned on him. He was banned after attempting a coup against the administrators, accusing them of reading private messages. But by then, Jason had tasted what he really wanted: an audience. The attention, whether ridicule or admiration, fueled him. He wasn't going to fade into obscurity. However, in this bizarre corner of the internet, Jason also found love. He met a woman named Emily, one of the few who seemed to buy into his stories. The two got married, and Jason moved overseas to live with her in the United Kingdom. For the first time, the man who claimed to be a mercenary, a royal outcast, and a reptilian hybrid had a stable domestic life. But as we'll see, Jason's hunger for attention and his tendency to sabotage himself would soon follow him across the ocean. But we'll talk more about this a bit later in the video. Much later, in the early 2010s, Jason Blaha reinvented himself once again, this time on YouTube. He launched a channel called Ice Cream Fitness, and for the first time, he seemed to find success.
Hey everybody, Jason Blaha here with Ice Cream Fitness. Today I'm going to get straight into the video, and I'm going to keep the bullshit to a minimum because this is going to be a very long, very detailed video. This was requested by someone today. I was going to do a different video today, and someone wrote a request in my intermediate full body routine for me to write a full body routine for the novice trainee.
He was respected and known for promoting his simple 5x5 lifting program. Big names in the fitness community gave him shoutouts. He built a loyal following who saw him as a no-nonsense coach cutting through the scams. For a brief moment, Jason Blaha was beloved. Branded around his simple 5x5 strength program, the channel quickly became a hub for no-nonsense lifting advice, rants against supplement companies, and call-outs aimed at bigger fitness personalities. For the first and only time in his career, Jason was taken seriously. He positioned himself as the straight shooter in an industry full of frauds, and the audience ate it up. Within a year, ice cream fitness exploded in popularity, marking the peak of Jason's genuine influence on YouTube. Jason also developed quirks that made him stand out. At expos and public appearances, he would sometimes carry a bagpuss doll, a strange prop that became a kind of mascot and inside joke among his fans. It gave him a certain eccentric charm, but beneath the surface, the cracks were already beginning to show. He leaned heavily into drama and call-out culture, building his audience less on training principles and more on attacking others. But if there's one constant in Jason's story, it's that every rise is followed by an even harder fall. And it wouldn't be long before his compulsive need to posture, lie, and create enemies dragged him into his first major feud, the one that would set the tone for the rest of his YouTube career. And in a now infamous incident, Jason started a GoFundMe campaign to buy himself a car. When fans criticized him, he claimed it was just a publicity stunt and insisted he would refund the donations. He never did. The episode left a sour taste, and many began questioning his motives. Even at his highest point, Jason was already sabotaging himself, using drama as a crutch, stirring feuds for views, and setting a pattern that would define the rest of his YouTube career. Offline, his personal life followed the same trajectory. He married his first wife, Anna, a nurse he had met through a bodybuilding forum. While she worked long shifts, Jason claimed he was unable to hold a steady job due to Meniere's disease, a condition he insisted left him with debilitating vertigo. He lived on disability checks while she supported the household, but Anna later alleged that Jason has no real diagnosis, that no doctor had ever confirmed the illness, and that he used it as an excuse to avoid work. Her accusations went further to say that Jason abused their cat, spinning it around by putting a sock over its head and generally neglecting the animal. This mix of inflated self-mythology, internet infamy, and troubling accusations formed the foundation of who Jason Blaha would become. Long before YouTube, long before the call-out videos, he'd already built a reputation as someone who lied compulsively, antagonized communities, and blurred the line between fantasy and reality, leaving behind just enough truth to keep people guessing. Another feud he had was with Lane Norton, which could be said to be the turning point that sent Jason Blaha's YouTube career into chaos. In 2013, while living in the UK, Jason began uploading a string of inflammatory videos accusing Dr. Lane Norton, who was a bodybuilder, powerlifter, and PhD nutritionist, of secretly using steroids, producing biased research, and leveraging a fake sense of academic credibility to sell himself. This prompted Dr. Lane to then challenge Jason to an academic debate, and he even promised to cover Jason's flight and logistics.
Hey guys, Lane Norton here. Sorry, couldn't help it. So, I know this video is probably going to give me a lot of criticism, and I understand that, and probably deservedly so, because I did say I was done talking about Jason. But I think that there's something I want to talk about it's not a personal thing between me and Jason. This is not about all the other stuff. It's not about the lies he made up about me or the threats to my family, all that kind of stuff. It's not about that. I see a lot of people, they'll say, well, I don't like Jason personally because of the fake mercenary stuff, the reptilian overlord, NASA, CIA operative, whatever. There seems to be quite the laundry list of things. But he gives really good fitness advice.
It appears that Lane Norton got his panties very much in a bunch, and not only issued a challenge to me, but he requested that all of his fans come and tell me to take him up on his challenge, because I actually really and truly deeply care about what any of his fans or anyone who listens to him thinks about me. I value their opinions. Those of you guys who are going to watch this, you're his fans, I highly value your opinions because you are such intelligent people who are not easily swayed by con men or charlatans in any way. So I definitely care about your opinion.
This was a heavy accusation, and at first looked like just another Blaha call-out. But this one escalated fast. Norton's fans began flooding his inbox with threats, including one aimed at his wife and newborn child. Lane pinned the blame squarely on Jason's videos and decided enough was enough. He hired a lawyer in the UK and filed a defamation lawsuit. Jason, ever the opportunist, immediately fundraised for a legal defense. He took money from his fans under the pretense of fighting the case in court, but when the day came, Jason never even showed up. The court awarded Norton a victory by default. The problem was, Jason was living on UK disability benefits due to his claimed Meniere's disease. He had no assets, no real income, meaning Norton couldn't actually collect damages, even after spending somewhere between $30,000 and $100,000 on the case. With the lawsuit hanging over him, Jason randomly shut down the ice cream fitness channel, abandoned the UK, and fled back to the United States. The fallout extended into his personal life too. His second wife, Emily, whom he had met on the David Icke forums, left him in the aftermath. The Lane Norton feud ended Blaha's first wave of YouTube success. It had begun as a fast-rising career in the fitness world, collapsed almost overnight, leaving him disgraced, broke, and starting over from scratch. After the Lane Norton lawsuit forced Jason to abandon the ice cream fitness brand and flee the UK, most people would have assumed that was the end of him. But Blaha is nothing if not relentless. By late 2013, he was back with a new channel, Juggernaut Fitness TV. Later, he would rebrand it as Jason Blaha Strength and Fitness, but the formula was the same. Rambling to camera, passing himself off as a grizzled veteran of the fitness world, and positioning himself as the lone voice exposing frauds in the industry. And somehow, it worked again. Despite the fallout with Lane Norton still hanging over his name, Jason managed to rebuild an audience. Within a couple of years, he had climbed back to around 80,000 subscribers, putting him right back in the conversation as a mid-tier fitness YouTuber. This was also the beginning of his relationship with Brittany Moon Cookie Lee, a former stripper with a history of DUIs and meth convictions. Their relationship became part of the Jason Blaha saga. Cookie was always in the background, a character who reinforced the crazy energy of his life and later played a direct role in one of his biggest controversies. Even as Jason's new channel grew, his behavior got stranger. During live streams, he was once caught urinating on mic, seemingly unaware of how much it would humiliate him once trolls clipped and spread the footage.
Had a nice good pee real quick,
He also began cycling through bizarre phases that made him look more like a caricature than a coach. At one point, he carried his Bagpuss doll everywhere again. Another phase saw him declaring himself a left-wing vegan. Months later, he flipped to the other extreme, styling himself as a right-wing gun enthusiast, surrounded by weapons in his videos. And then, seemingly at random, he started presenting himself as a cowboy guitarist. These shifts became a running joke. It also served as proof that Jason would reinvent himself at the drop of a hat if it meant holding attention for a few weeks longer. Despite the weirdness, Jason was incredibly prolific. He was uploading anywhere between 2 to 5 videos a day, a relentless pace that ensured his name stayed circulating on YouTube's algorithm. His content formula solidified. 1 or 2 informative training rants padded with as much ad time as possible, and at least one drama video targeting another YouTuber. It was in these drama videos that Jason grew his reputation as a professional antagonist. He thrived on feuds, deliberately setting his fan base against others in the fitness community. He would call out fake natties, accuse influencers of secretly being on steroids, and bait bigger channels into responding so he could ride the wave of controversy. To Jason, feuds weren't just part of the game, they were the lifeblood of his channel. He once admitted, this controversy I kind of did tons of controversy even before I had 5,000 subscribers. That's kind of how I got popular to begin with.
Also, for those who want to say this channel is going downhill, Jason's doing stuff he didn't used to do, this controversy. Actually, I kind of did tons of controversy even before I had 5,000 subscribers. That's kind of how I got popular to begin with.
The Juggernaut fitness era was a perfect snapshot of Blaha's rise and unraveling. He proved he could always rebuild an audience no matter how many times he tanked his reputation. But the foundation of that audience was never his lifts, never his programs, never even his coaching. It was his ability to start fights, to manufacture drama, and to keep viewers watching the bizarre spectacle of Jason Blaha. By 2015, entire communities like FitMisk and Genovapedia had dedicated subsections just to tracking his lies, contradictions, and antics. They began archiving everything he said, exposing inconsistencies, and interviewing his ex-wife to confirm details. The anti-blaha movement had officially taken root. Jason, meanwhile, kept pumping out videos at an industrial pace, leaning on the same toxic formula that made him both unmissable and despised. The Juggernaut fitness era ended the same way all of Jason's eras ended, by the way. By the end of 2015, Jason Blaha wasn't just a fitness YouTuber anymore. He had started rewriting his own life story into something more dramatic, the tale of a government-trained assassin. He claimed that at 17 years old, he'd been recruited by the CIA and sent to The Farm, Langley's legendary covert training facility. From there, the story snowballed. Jason said that he fought cartels in Central America, executed terrorists in the Middle East, and even boasted that he once sniped a man off a donkey. He described himself as a master interrogator, someone who'd been paid not in money, but in hardware and experience.
Yes, I have a classified background. Yes, I have non-disclosure agreements. So technically anything that anyone finds about me, if they get a hold of it, it's illegal for them to have it. If they spread it around, they're guilty of espionage.
To complete the fantasy, Jason gave himself a code name, Hemingway, a shadowy Black Ops mercenary who quoted literature between missions. But as with everything Blaha, the trolls weren't buying it. They accused him of stolen valor, pointing out that his stories didn't line up with military records or his very public police reports from that same era. The more Jason doubled down, the more determined they became to expose him. And then came the most infamous attempt at damage control, the Coppertop 22 video. In this clip, a mysterious figure appeared on YouTube. Wearing sunglasses, a hat, and speaking through a distorted voice, he vouched for Jason's past. He claimed that yes, Jason Blaha really had been Hemingway, and that they had served as mercenaries together in the field.
This is Mark. I need to speak to you about the video you made with Jason, because I don't think you realised that it's actually came out online now and linked back to you.
But there was a problem. Trolls weren't idiots. Within one day, they reversed the swirl filter Jason had used on the man's face and matched him to someone on Facebook, Jay Parker, an acquaintance of Jason's girlfriend, Moon Cookie. The fallout was brutal. Not only was the video mocked endlessly, but Parker himself lost his job after being associated with Blaha's fabricated mercenary tales. And rather than defending Jason, Parker would later flip completely, joining the trolls and sharing humiliating stories about his time with him. He told of a poolside barbecue where Jason showed up in toe shoes, arms crossed, refusing to join the fun. While everyone else drank beer and played water volleyball, Jason sat off to the side, fidgety and paranoid. At one point, he even lifted his shirt to show Parker a Glock 26 tucked in his waistband, no holster, just raw paranoia.
You know, whose team you gonna be on? And we all jumped in the pool. Even Brittany got in, and we had a great time. And I noticed that Jason was still sitting over by himself, just kind of watching the whole thing, and he was being really kind of fidgety. So after we played a few games of volleyball, we got out to take a break, and you know, some of the people wanted to smoke cigarettes and whatever. So
we sprung on this mother. These cigarettes, real.
As Parker put it, this was a grown man sitting at a pool party, armed like he was preparing for a firefight. The night got even weirder. Jason tried to sell Parker an AR-10 rifle for $1,000, eventually knocking the price down by $800. On one condition: Parker had to record that infamous script as Coppertop 22. It was essentially a debt payoff disguised as a testimonial.
Started telling me about this .308 rifle he's trying to sell. And it was really unclear if he was selling it for Brittany and it actually belonged to Brittany, or if he was selling it for himself, but at that time they referred to it as theirs. And I looked at it, and it wasn't anything special, but it was a 308. It was an AR-10, which I didn't have an AR-10, so I was like, hey, no kidding. What do you want for it? And he said $1,000 flat. And I mean, this had full rails, aftermarket buttstock. It had, you know, a scope on it. I didn't see if it was a nice scope or not, but it was dressed out. It had all the parts. And I looked on the website of the manufacturer, and that gun was like $1,400 was the MSRP at the time. So I was like, all right, $400 off. Yeah, I'll take it for $1,000, but I don't really have any cash on me unless I run to an ATM. And at this point, Brittany was like, oh, I trust you. We'll just leave it here and we'll, you know, grab it off you later. And I was like, okay, here, I'll give you $200 now. That way I don't owe you a full $1,000 later. I'll just owe you $800. They were like, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. That was pretty much the whole interaction. I mean, he made weird comments throughout, and a couple of my buddies and neighbors were like, hey, who's that weirdo? But nothing really stuck out.
The stunt backfired spectacularly. Instead of silencing his critics, the Copper Top 22 incident became one of the most defining moments of the Blaha mythos. It was proof that his mercenary persona wasn't just exaggerated, it was entirely staged. And once Parker joined the other side, the stories of Jason's awkwardness, paranoia, and lies only got louder. What was meant to cement Jason Blaha's legacy as a soldier for hire did the opposite. It branded him forever as the man who tried to invent a mercenary past and got caught in 24 hours. On fitmisc.net, a discussion thread about Jason Blaha quickly snowballed into one of the most infamous troll campaigns in YouTube history. At first, it was lighthearted, people joking about his quirks, his odd mannerisms, and the strange claims he made in his endless videos, but the more they dug, the more they realized something. No single person had ever kept track of all of Jason's lies. Individually, they sounded like exaggerations. Collected together, they painted a picture of a man living entirely inside a web of fantasy. So, the trolls began to catalog him. Every contradiction, every wild claim, every weird forum post, all archived, documented, and compiled. It became a living library of Jason Blaha's fabrications. Even old enemies joined in. Lane Norton, the same bodybuilder Jason had accused of being a steroid-using fraud, reportedly paid to advertise Jason Blaha exposed videos across YouTube. Then came the discovery that lit the fire even brighter. Jason's old post on the David Icke forums. Thousands of messages where he claimed to have reptilian DNA, to be a mind-controlled sleeper agent, even to be related to royalty. To the trolls, this was gold. Here was Hemingway, the mercenary, exposed as a man who once earnestly told strangers online he might be part werewolf. Jason's response only made things worse. Instead of denying it, he claimed that all those posts were part of a job. He was, he insisted, a paid conspiracy fiction writer working under a pseudonym, bound by a non-disclosure agreement. It was a weak excuse, and the trolls knew it. To them, Jason wasn't just lying anymore, he was lying about lying. And every time he tried to cover one story, they unearthed two more. It was also around this time that the Craigslist thing we spoke about earlier in the video actually happened. This single incident would spiral out of control. Jason claimed it led to bomb scares, death threats, and even his eviction from the apartment complex after neighbors and management became aware of what was happening. But to the trolls, this was just entertainment. They had successfully dragged Jason out of his chair and onto the battlefield, one where he looked both dangerous and ridiculous at the same time. However, in the mid-2010s, Jason Blaha tried to reinvent himself yet again, this time by stepping into the world of political commentary. Alongside his girlfriend Moon Cookie, Jason began appearing in the live audience of Tommy's Garage, a small right-wing talk show filmed in Texas with a homegrown blue-collar vibe. Jason showed up in Donald Trump t-shirts, nodding and clapping along, trying to blend into the crowd and stake his place in the scene. But Jason was already infamous online, and people weren't about to let this attempt at normalcy succeed. They dug up footage of Jason at the show and sent it directly to Tommy's Garage sponsors, including a pro-veteran seafood restaurant that proudly supported all the troops. The trolls made sure the sponsors knew Jason Blaha wasn't a veteran at all, but a man exposed online for stolen valor and a fake mercenary tale. The result was swift. Jason and Moon Cookie were banned from the show, cutting off what might have been his first step into a new public persona. If Jason thought being kicked out of Tommy's garage was the end of it, he was wrong. This was just one battle in what became a full-on war. Trolls began calling Jason's family members directly. When they reached his father, the truth came out. Jason had never been in the military, never been a mercenary, never worked covert ops. He had been nothing more than a laborer in a warehouse. To Jason, this just cemented the humiliation.
He was a laborer.
So it was building work as opposed to soldier or mercenary work.
What kind of work?
Well, in the video we were sent, he claims to have been a mercenary, as in
A mercenary?
a mercenary, yeah, private security, as in performing.
No. He was working on compressors and engines.
So he was never intelligence.
Manual labor.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It didn't stop there. People built and burned effigies of Jason Blaha, recording the mock funerals and uploading them online. Others infiltrated his Discord chats and private Facebook messages, baiting Jason into bizarre confessions, sometimes about guns, sometimes about trolls, sometimes just unfiltered delusion. One of the strangest exposures came when trolls discovered a secret channel Jason had been running under the name ASMR Cardio Gamer. Hundreds of videos of Jason pedaling a stationary bike while playing World of Warcraft, whispering into a microphone. In these clips, he spilled coffee on himself, cursed at leaf blowers outside his house, and even bragged anonymously about owning a huge YouTube fitness channel. The trolls even turned Moon Cookie against him. They uncovered an old video of her stripping at a Halloween event, which wouldn't have been a scandal for most people, except Jason had once mocked another YouTuber for beating a beta cuckold because his girlfriend had kissed another woman. This was delicious hypocrisy, and they spread the clip everywhere. By this point, the pattern was clear. No matter what Jason tried, the trolls found a way to ruin it. Meetups were sabotaged, seminars were shut down, relationships were exposed and mocked. Every attempt Jason made to build a public life outside his YouTube chair was dismantled piece by piece by an army of trolls who had made him their full-time project. By 2017, the cracks in Jason Blaha's world had split wide open. His longtime partner Moon Cookie, the ex-stripper with drug convictions who had stood beside him through years of drama, finally left him. With her departure, Jason lost not just his girlfriend, but the last bit of credibility he used to stage his wild mercenary myths. His YouTube numbers began to crumble. Once boasting nearly 300,000 subscribers at the peak of his Juggernaut fitness run, Jason quietly hid his subscriber count as it plummeted. His peers in fitness had abandoned him entirely. The only people still watching were the trolls waiting for the next embarrassing meltdown to dissect, and no matter how you looked at it, this was not good at all. Even his personal life became troll fodder. In 2017, Jason rescued a dog during the Houston floods, a pit bull mix named Nova, but not long after, Nova died under suspicious circumstances. Jason claimed the trolls had poisoned her food. The trolls countered that Nova was a victim of Jason's neglect, left alone without food or water while Jason went away for days. The truth was never confirmed, but the story stuck, adding to years of rumors about Jason's mistreatment of animals. You see, his first wife Anna had already alleged that Jason abused their cat by spinning it around with a sock over its head for amusement. Now, with Nova's death, the narrative of Jason as careless or cruel toward pets became another stain on his name. But through it all, Jason never stopped uploading. Still 2 to 5 videos a day, every day. Rambling monologues about fitness, drama call-outs, or just gun talk filmed from his chair. His channel hovered around 100,000 subscribers, but his actual views told the real story, only a few hundred per video. Where once he had commanded attention across the fitness world, he now was just talking into the void. His audience a mix of ironic supporters, loyal trolls, and the occasional confused newcomer who stumbled in. Jason Blaha, the self-proclaimed mercenary, elite powerlifter, and fitness truth-teller, had been reduced to the internet equivalent of a sideshow attraction. And even as his reach collapsed, he just kept talking, uploading into obscurity as if nothing had changed. By 2020, Jason Blaha was no longer a major voice in the fitness world. With his subscriber base shrinking and his reputation in tatters, he tried to pivot into online coaching, charging anywhere from $180 to $300 a month. Jason marketed himself as a serious trainer offering personalized programs. The reality, however, was underwhelming. Estimates suggest he had maybe 7 paying clients at most, a tiny number compared to the thousands who followed him years before. Still, Jason never stopped uploading. He became compulsive about it even. By this point, his channel contained over 13,000 videos. He churned out multiple uploads, fitness rants, Q&A sessions, and endless monologues, all delivered in the same droning tone from his chair. Jason cycled through phases to keep himself relevant. For a while, he played cowboy guitar in his videos. Then came a string of new diets, political rants, and ideological swings, from left-wing veganism to right-wing gun absolutism, often contradicting things he had said just months earlier. In 2021 and 2022, his personal life once again spilled into the public eye. He was romantically linked to 2 women, Ruby Cherry, an Australian, and later an older woman named Jen. Both relationships became fuel for trolls who dissected every photo and post. Things took a darker turn when a troll posing as Section 8 Fitness successfully catfished Jason. Pretending to be a supporter, Section 8 lured Jason into sending voice messages and private details, which were later leaked online. The recordings were humiliating, exposing just how desperate and paranoid he had become. Even more unsettling was Jason's living situation. For a period, his roommate was a woman awaiting trial for murder. It was one of those bizarre details about Jason's later life that blurred the line between pathetic and disturbing, raising questions about how isolated and unstable his circumstances had become. The trolls, however, never let up. Through it all, Jason clung to the same narrative he had repeated for years, that he was a victim of relentless haters, targeted because he told uncomfortable truths. Yet he never once took accountability for the lies, contradictions, or threats that had built the foundation of his downfall. From CIA fantasies to stolen valor scandals, from fake mercenary buddies to catfishing trolls, Jason Blaha's life became a case study in internet self-destruction, and in his later years, he showed no sign of breaking the cycle.